What's up, world? Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Conversation Podcast. Yours truly, Roger A. Franco. Happy New Year. This is the first official episode for 2024. So for this episode, I wanted to have a little special conversation, so I invited a very special guest, considered to be a very good friend of mine, Dr. Walter Hidalgo. Thank you, sir, for being here with me today. I appreciate your presence.
Oh, always grateful and humbled, yo.
Thank you, sir. For those of you who've been following, Walter was actually on an episode in the first season of The Conversation. And if I'm not mistaken, we talked about spirituality and technology and the internet and all of that and the impact on society. So, me and Walter were sort of on the same wavelength when it comes to things like that, and definitely love to have him come through and chop it up with us. So, really what I wanted to discuss with Walter was, I'm hearing a lot of people saying now with the turn of the new year and, certain events that have been happening in society that, truth is going to be revealed. This is the year of truth that they're saying. And there's a shift that's coming or taking place in, people's ideology and their consciousness and whatnot. And, we were kind of actually talking about that off camera. What's the science behind that? Is it real? Are we just being led down, a different rabbit hole? Are we still being manipulated? All that good stuff. You know how we like to get deep on the conversation. But before we get into all of that, back to my guest, Dr. Walter Hidalgo. Tell the people a little bit about, who you are, your background, and, what you into nowadays. Definitely want to talk about. Also, forgot to mention, he also does a podcast called Know Thyself. I was actually a guest on his show a couple years back.
Yes.
That was a great experience. So, yeah, talk about, again, your background and everything you're into and sort of what your show is about now.
Yo, peace and blessings. Super grateful and humbled to be here amongst the gods, including that man behind the camera.
True indeed.
I'm just so grateful. The fact that we're still alive and able to have these conversations in real time and document them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my God, so important. Walter Hidalgo, I always say born and raised in the south side of Providence. I will always rep my home, my hood, which is south side. Yeah, definitely Rhode Island. And that's neighborhoods change. I was there for the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
I don't go as often, but wow, you talk about the change there, and you see it here too.
Right.
But I sum it up. I'm an educator. I'm a coach. I'm a father, entrepreneur. I did my graduate studies at Union Theological Seminary at Columbia University. My focus was on church history and sociology. Then I did my doctorate at New York Theological Seminary, where I focused on the intersectionality between hip-hop culture and social spiritual movements, which eventually developed into my book, Beyond the Four Walls, The Rising Ministry and Spirituality of Hip-Hop, which is now evolved again into the podcast, like you said, Know Thyself.
Right.
But, honestly, man, at this point, not to get too deep, I'm you. I'm not you. I'm nothing. I'm everything. I'm grateful to be here. And that's a little bit about me.
He just took us around the world in like 20 seconds. But, again, thank you for being here. I always love sitting down and talking with you and vibing on a certain level. And first off, I didn't know that you were originally from Providence, Rhode Island, so I just learned something there. Okay, that's good to know. What made you sort of seek your education in the field that you just mentioned and, get your doctorate and then talking about, hip hop and how it connects with spirituality? Nobody, from what I've seen in my years, has really approached that topic and sort of shed light on that perspective. So how did you come to all of that?
Yeah, legacy, that's such an important question that you ask. And it's so ill that, I'm 41, about to be 42 in April. My mind is different. So there's so many ways I would have answered that question. But the word that I gotta follow my intuition, because that's God talking inside of me. Is discernment. You know, like I was, you know, it's bugged out because of the times we're living in right now, where people ain't trying to work, their hustle's different. I just remember sitting down, you know, working as a paralegal in Providence, because I went after my undergrad. I went there for a little bit. I worked, and I'm thinking of Neo in the Matrix. You're just going to work, and it's just like, I don't feel fulfilled, man. Something in me, I want something more. And let me tell you something. Anybody listening to this, when you have that pull, when something's telling you there's something more, that I really believe God's calling you. I don't know to do what. It took me a while to figure that out. A long time, but I think discernment of and going deep, like, what is it do I really want in my life? I know that I didn't want to work a 9 to 5, man. I know I didn't want to work for the man. I know that when I found out the organization that I was working with as a paralegal were developing bombs, you know, that were fighting off Iran and Iraq at that time, you know, and it's like, I don't want no part of that, you know? Right. So you really start to become more conscious and aware of thyself. And I think for me, it was like, what is it that is important in my life that I find joy in? I love history, and I have a deep sense of faith, man. So for some reason, seminaries kept popping up, and I applied, and Union was one of the 3 schools that did accept me. And I moved to New York 2007 and stayed there ever since. And it kind of drew me into this journey. I didn't know what to expect, to be honest. I think seminary, I'm thinking I got to pray, I got to kneel, I got to be at this and that. But it was totally different. It was very academic. It was really more as much here as it was here. And yeah, I was like, I had to write a thesis. I had to do a project, and I'm like, what am I gonna do it on? And I felt the one thing that was relevant in my life, that connected everybody in my life, that I'm still with, and this is a manifestation of that, was the culture, was hip hop. And now I'm thinking of hip hop differently. I see it differently now as I'm getting older, and maybe that's because we're like the 3rd generation hip hoppers, or second. Because I know you got to be born in this country, but I'm thinking of the waves, you know, because they were hip hoppers that were in the 70s, coming from the 80s, and I'm a like 90s.
Right. I feel you.
You know, but long story short, I got into the work of hip hop and spirituality because I love the culture. But I also loved sociology. I love studying society, looking at people, observing. I'm very observant. I think we all are in the hood. We got to watch our environment, look at who's around. And I love people. I love diversity. I grew up in a super diverse place, still do. And I just was trying to figure out how I can make sense of a culture that was having that impact. At that time, hip-hop was turning 40. And I was like, wow, it's kind of like the ancient Israelites 40 years in the desert. Are we making it to the promised land? Is this, you know, people are coming together. I had conversations. I had a lot of dialogue. I must have interviewed like at least somewhere between 15 to 20,000 people all over the world. Now that I think about it, and people was like, yo, you need to talk about this more. And it's like, I'm really grateful and humble. Many of y'all were a part of this. So I think we needed, as Dr. Tyson said, who put together the first hip hop and psychology conference at Fordham University, which I was so grateful to be a part of, with Dr. Gastambide, who was a psychologist, that we needed to start quantifying and starting, developing data on the impacts that the culture was having, because we've been talking about the shift, and the shift happened in 2012, cosmologically, globally, they were saying a shift was going to happen. But I really do believe that hip hop was that last sort of like surviving grace that God was giving us, saying, yo, get it together, use the art. You are all the same under my eyes, but y'all are just fighting with each other, but use the culture. It could be that unifying force, and we just celebrated 50.
So let me just stop you on that point, because That's something very interesting because I was recently watching. I saw a video of someone who was talking about back in the 70s that there was actually more murders than there are now. And the point the person was trying to make is that hip hop is prevalent now and there's less murders. So is it really the music and the culture that's contributing to the murders, right? Now, I didn't check the statistics on that to see if that's actually relevant or whatnot. But when we talk about hip hop and psychology and the impact that it does have on our community and culture, like what that brother was saying, his point was there's not a negative impact on our culture. It's just entertainment. Do you in the research that you've done and the people that you've spoken to and from your own ideology of what psychology and hip hop means and what it represents, is that true? Is there a correlation between the imagery and the messages that we send? Is it just entertainment, or does it mean something different for us in our communities because it's art and craft that we developed, that we, that we brought to the world? So in my mind, I do feel it's universal, but it's something that's held different in our hearts because of how we created it, if that makes sense. That was a long-winded way to ask you, that question, but, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question. I think of the arts and therapy, two sides of the same coin. There's a history, a lineage of this,
right,
from our people,
Right.
And I hate these terms, people of color, and just anybody that has gone through some level of resistance and oppression. There's always, as Tupac said, the rose that rises out of the concrete jungle. When you think about, like, for example, the art form capoeira, that came out of resistance from African slaves in Brazil, they weren't just fighting physically, they were gathering spiritually, when we think about what was happening in this country through jazz and blues and the aesthetics of art and music, they weren't just expressions of liberation. They were gathering places where people were organizing, thinking critically about their world and what's really was happening.
Right.
Unfortunately, we all know that this art form was co-opted and taken from us for entertainment purposes because they understood the attention that it was getting. We're still living in a time where attention is currency, man. It has been, attention has always been the currency, yo.
Right.
You
Now
get the
crazy.
attention of the masses, you're gonna be powerful.
Right.
So I think in a lot of ways when we talk about hip hop and psychology, first and foremost, the reason the culture gets the negative attention is because of the negative attention that it gives. We only go by one-dimensionally, only talking about the music. We forget about the art. We forget about the breakdancing. Now it's part of the Olympics.
Right.
It's just like there's so many different forms, and then also just I'm coming from it from the point of the fifth element. Some say the sixth or seventh, whatever, but that is knowledge of self. That is education.
Right.
That's the hip hop declaration of peace. I'm coming from the gospel of hip hop. These people who KRS-One, knowledge reigns supreme over nearly everyone. Names have meaning. Right. I call Chris the Pope of hip hop. You got to look for. Everybody's talking about looking for elders and stuff, looking for those strong masculine, feminine figures. But we do have them out there, and they're in the culture. You have to dig in the crates, as they say.
Right.
But I think hip hop has been used for healing. There's many organizations just in the form of freestyle, for example. When the cipher is creates a state of homeostasis. A balance there of a give and take and a receiving. I know clinicians who have used hip hop in a circle with young people to bring up themes that brought up trauma but has helped them with kind of healing because they've been able to express it in an objective, artistic,
Right.
non-judgmental way. So there's been studies. I think there hasn't been enough, again, quantitatively. I don't know who has picked it up since Dr. Tyson's work, but I think there's a lot to be said of what's happening in hip hop with what we don't see, because there's a lot of garbage out there in the culture too. You know, people are talking about like what's that called? Drill.
Rap,
You know what I mean? Even, you know, that's how you know I'm getting older. I had to think about that real quick because I'm not tapped into that.
Right.
Because we know frequencies, we know artists, but now there's no excuse. We got the Library of Alexandria in our phones and more. Like we families, teachers, instead of judging the child as we know our parents and others have done to us when we were growing up, spitting our own lyrics, we need to really exegete or explain, like dive deep into what it is that these people are saying in their lyrics, because a lot of it is still expression of what's happening in their communities. If you're talking about guns, what are you doing having access to guns? Speaks to a different issue, right? Still to this day, we're still amplifying the realities of our social cultural conditions.
So as you're saying that, I was thinking about the episode that shout out to my man Diz the Icon. That
shout out to the guy
on you know, we were talking about the 50th anniversary of hip hop and sort of where hip hop is now, and you know, we were talking about Sexy Red and, you know, her type of music. And, you know, one of the things, the people who do support that type of music and, you know, someone, you know, being who they are, one of the things that they say they like about it is, about the artists is, you know, they're being unapologetically themselves, right? So I get that, but let's play, you know, let me play devil's advocate for a minute. You know, if I put a crackhead in front of you who's unapologetically a crackhead, like I live my life to get up and smoke crack and that's just who I am, are we gonna support and praise that person just for being unapologetically who they are? So, you know, I get being that way, who you are, being authentic, real, and whatnot, but there's always an opportunity to strive to be better, to evolve. And I don't see that, me personally, I don't see that aspect of it being part of the conversation. It's all about, well, this is who I am, and that's it. So from your perspective, you know, how can we as a hip hop community and culture sort of address that and not have it seem like, you know, we talk about the elders, that it's not the elders, you know, talking down to the younger generation. It's coming from a place of love. We want you to grow and, you know, elevate to a higher level. So, you know, how do we have those conversations? How do we address those types of issues without causing further division in our communities?
You know, I think because that's a great question. I believe because we're living in a public social sphere that we forget that privacy is key too. You know, we need to have more private conversations instead of putting everything out on blast about how we feel and what we think.
Right.
Let's be real. Nobody gives up. First of all, right?
Nobody
about what
cares.
you think, especially when you get older, yo. It's like,
that
but
is so
young
true.
person, I get it, because you got 2.3 million followers and every second of your life is monitored. I think we have a social responsibility to hold everyone accountable of what they put publicly. Yo, I know that we're allowed to say everything and anything, but what you put out there will come back to you 2 and 3-fold. We know rappers many a times talk about I'm ready to die, and they died. You know, like we are manifesting things, and not only are we manifesting it verbally, but we're recording it and putting it into pictures and archiving it. You know what I mean? I think in a lot of ways it's cool because young people need to express themselves. We've been there. But I also think that unlike our time where we, again, had to dig in the crates, and we were still kind of living off of the X amount of TV channels.
Right.
Like now everything is out there, accessible 24/7.
Right.
And more studies are coming out that although technology can get up to 5 gigs or more, our brains can't. We can't like quantify and go as deep and fast as the computer can. So what happens? Overload. What happens is like a lot of people are, you get one finger pointing, now you got 2.5 million pointing at you. And do you have the thick skin to handle that?
Right.
And if you're a young person and don't have that support system enough that you can have a therapist, a one-on-one with mom or whoever, it's going to be very hard because now you're more inclined to get your fix from social media and the public venues.
Right.
I think now it speaks to, as a parent, and speaks to like, all the conversations we've had around social media. It's become a drug. It's become, something that we have to be very careful and mindful of our own health. So I'm always big on fasting. I'm always big on like, social media shouldn't be the first thing you look at before you go to bed, and when you wake up in the morning. Like give your grace for yourself, experience life in real time. But Lady Red and Foxy Red and whoever Reds, like all these characters coming out, I'm looking at that, and honestly, I'm still trying to figure it out because again, like we had to look for this stuff. Now you don't have to look for it. It comes to you. And especially if you got the algorithm where you're looking at her 2 or 3 times a week, it's going to pop up in front of you no matter what.
Right.
So having, again, those conversations, like we got to, I think a parent or somebody that really cares about their kid needs to look at their algorithm. Like say, can I just look at your algorithm and have that non-judgment free zone, because that algorithm say a lot about what your child likes, maybe doesn't like on the low, but the algorithm speak to their likes. So it's like, if you want to connect with your child, maybe you should look at that algorithm.
Yeah, man, it's a crazy time, and like, what I would categorize it as is, we live in a tabloid culture where everything is, who said what about who's dating who had a fight and all this type of stuff. And so much of people's self-esteem is, being generated from social media, because like you said, the likes and how many followers you got and the comments and all that type of stuff. And, people are starting to really look outside of themselves for that happiness and gratification, and I think leads to a lot of unhealthy, dysfunctional kind of behavior that takes us away from our true nature. But that's a topic for another show. Let's talk a little bit about your podcast, Know Thyself. As I said, I was a guest on there, a couple years back. I had a great time. Because I think for me, it comes from a sort of a different perspective, and I think you're getting great information and subject matter out of the people that you're interviewing based off of the premise of what your show is. So for those, who may have been living under a rock for all this time, tell them what Know Thyself is all about.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you for that small plug.
Of course, man. Of course, brother.
Know Thyself, man. Wow. Season 11.
Wow.
Next.
11
yeah,
seasons.
I know, right? Yeah. Just going on. Because now I've been rolling them out 5 episodes and just gracing myself because, I got so much other stuff going on. But, it started just with audio and me just waking up saying, it comes from Kemetic spirituality of knowing thyself, which is the most important thing you can do in your life. Go deep into yourself. So I wanted to use the metaphor of the shelf to extrapolate the self. And I've been inviting guests now for the last, 4 or 5 years, sharing things that are coming out of their shelf, that it's important in their life, because I think beyond hip-hop and what I've been covering, I love to listen to people from all walks of life and hearing what what makes them tick, and
Right.
you know what's important in their life, and extrapolating their life, because this journey is a long one. It's from cradle to grave, and the more we see people, you know, it's interesting. Your episode, right? It was called "You Can Be What You See."
Yeah. I remember that.
You know, and it's like I think almost that's like at the heart of it. Like there's somebody out there that wants to be a next Legacy, a next 13, a next me, or whoever, in their own way, and they don't know how to do it, or they need some advice. You know, I'm gonna say something kind of real and deep, because I think the most important thing you need to do in this life is, if you don't ever share somebody something important, that's the most evil thing, because everybody needs a little bit instructions. You know, the reason I work with young people and I do this stuff is because I grew up with a lot of my friends not having fathers, yo. And I don't want to go deep into that conversation. And that's not to say if you don't got pops in your life, you can not excel, because that's a lie. A one-parent home, or grandma, or whoever, because if you believe in yourself, you can do anything in this world. But when I saw a lot of my guy friends suffer with not having fathers, it really hurt me a lot, man, because I saw a lot of my friends get killed, kill themselves, kill other people, you know, hurt people, do a lot of prison time, and it revolves a lot about what happens around at home, man. I'm learning that more and more as a father, because I'm not perfect. I'm learning. I'm really learning in real time. So when I do these episodes, I hope, because I'm not nobody's father, yo. I'm nobody's father. I'm just trying to figure it out like everybody else. But I hope that some young person who may not have that go-to person in their life to see these and say, yo, it's going to be okay, yo. You're going to be all right, yo. Because if we can do it, you can do it.
Right. That's dope. You know, like I said, I think it's a great show. You know, I wish you much success. Keep going. But to sort of switch gears a little bit, you know, like I said earlier in the show, this year, the beginning of this year, people are considering it to be, you know, a change, a shift. You know, truth is being revealed. This is the year for change and truth, and you know, everything that's being done in the dark or has been done in the dark is going to come to light.
Oof.
So, you know, what are your thoughts about that? You know, do you agree? Do you think it's authentic and genuine from what you're experiencing? And you know, the thing I wanted to also say to people, you know, forget about social media, forget about what you see in the news and all of that, and read in the newspaper. Based on what you're seeing, we're talking about real time. When you walk out your door, from the people that you interact with and you talk to on a regular basis, that's the framework I would like you to answer that question from. Not from anything, because like I said, because when I mentioned that to you earlier before we started, you were like, really? That's what you're hearing? So, again, because I don't really believe or put much into what's put out there for us to digest, I base it off of what I see and who I talk to. So, based off of that sort of framework, do you feel that change is happening? And if so, is it sort of genuine, and will it be sustained?
Yeah, it reminds me of a theologian who said that heaven is here, but not yet. You know what I mean? Like a lot of things are, you know, change is inevitable. Well, what's the saying? There's three things you can't change. Change, no, that's inevitable. Change, death, and taxes, right? And those taxes, boy, legacy. I had to learn that too, yo.
You know what I'm saying?
No, again, I really think it's important, because this is a big part of my research. Real quickly, in 2012, the Mayans, their calendar, which is one of the most intricate ones, said that in 2012, the Earth will die. There'll be an apocalypse, but not in a physical, but in a spiritual sense.
Okay.
And there were many other communities, including those from the Jains, from the Indus Valley in India, and even in Africa, that were sensing that, because, back then, unlike now where we too busy looking this way, we're not doing too much that, they were doing that a lot. So they understood astrologically, cosmologically, theologically what was happening based on certain cosmological shifts. Some people think that's pseudoscience. Some people think that's fake. I can go both ways with it.
Right.
In my heart, I do believe everything happens for a reason, that God is always working in and out. God steps out, lets us figure it out. God's like, oh, it's getting too bad out here. Let me try to figure it out for y'all. Then steps back, goes in, kind of like a parent. We look at God like a parent. That's the way we have always used the metaphor of God being like a dad,
Right.
or a mom, or both. So I do believe that since then, that shift that they've been talking about has been manifested. The post. I know you showed love on that post because I said that. When I saw that Cat Williams interview, when I saw that interview, I said, okay, this is one ripple of many that have been going on since 2012. Whether it's COVID-19, whether it's the Epsteins. I believe the biggest evil, in my opinion, that no one talks a lot about is child trafficking and what is happening. That is the biggest evil I've been telling people that's been happening. And I'm not just talking about rich people doing this, Legacy.
Right.
I'm talking about your uncle. Right. I'm talking about the priest. I'm talking about because of the over-sexualization that I even had to learn this myself, man. Like for me and my own family, you dig? It's very deep-rooted. So there is evil. And, one of the deepest books that I've ever read in my life that was given to me by a sister, a queen, one of my mentors, was the autobiography of Satan.
Of Satan?
Yes.
Okay.
The beginning of that book said, the biggest okie dokie that I give to the world is people believing that I don't exist. And I start to thinking like, yeah, he goes, I exist whenever you try to doubt yourself, lie to yourself, cheat with other people, or even try to kill yourself, because that's when I know I got you. Like, I don't know if we think about devil with the horns, and we think about this stuff, media, because media was multi-ethnic destruction in America, as Professor Griff said. But I do believe right now outside, we've become numb. COVID exacerbated it. It's a continuing big ripple of what's happening. Seclusion has become the thing. That's why things are empty more. And when the gatherings do happen, they're very superficial. They're becoming very superficial now. Relationships are becoming very superficial. And it has a lot to do with what happened. The fear. Because, I was just watching that movie, The Day the Earth Stood Still. Y'all seen that movie, yo?
With
Keanu Reeves. I never seen that movie, and I'm looking at that like, imagine aliens did come and shut down all the grid system. Possible with a solar flare, but it's like we've become so dependent to technology, myself included. That the fears, then fear comes in, and it's like if the grid goes off, and we got to get Hunger Games with it. It's quite a possibility. With everything that's going on, and then the tribalism and the politics, and that it's like, but I also we have to step back, Legacy. Because again, you had to wait at 6 o'clock for the news. You get the news 24 hours in your phone, dude. You gotta calm yourself down. Like, when the stuff was happening in the Middle East, I shed a tear, man. I cried. I was depressed for a month because I know people, and I've been to these places in Palestine and in Israel, and it makes me very sad, yo.
Right.
Very sad. But it's like, I have to, like Capadonna said, like, I got to protect my soul, yo. You got to protect your soul in this. But I do see a lot of, like, I see zombies out here. I see a lot of, like, cloud chasing, a lot of superficiality, a lot of distancing and tribalism. But I also see, like, in the same thing of when chaos happens, there's also beautiful things happening. You know, that people are taking advantage of these situations. You know,
Right.
you don't need to travel no more. Just get on a Zoom. That lessens your time. It cuts down the money costs for people that are in the professional level. So there's a
Right.
lot of cool, dope things but my thing is like we continue to be a microwave society where we do want things really fast.
Right.
But God forbid things don't come fast enough, we leave. And that's what's happening in the job market. People are like, I can do this quicker. Why do you need me?
Right. Exactly.
You know, so it's planning out in different ways. Do I see change? Absolutely. Is it horrible? Absolutely. But I believe and hope hearing other people's experiences and sharing each other's stories. You know, it's realizing that there's another way, that there's another avenue. That despite these changes, despite that I do feel that we're really getting deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole of the matrix, right? That I still have to grace myself with like putting my phone down and not letting it be like it's a part of my finger. You know, like people, it's that detachment anxiety. Like I think of myself like, wow, nowadays you don't have your phone, people trip.
Think about you leave the house in the morning at 8:00 and you an hour into your commute and you find out you left your phone at home. Some people start panicking, like, "Oh shit!" And when I've done it, you know, I immediately start thinking of all the information I'm not gonna have immediate access to. What if somebody's trying to text me?
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying? So I definitely hear what you're saying. Is that detachment aspect of it, and for me, like, I do see change happening. I do see people sort of waking up and starting to pay attention and becoming aware of things. But I also see it in the other direction too, where people are becoming even more complacent in ignorance. People value attention over respect. So I think in all aspects of that spectrum, it's going to its extremes almost, which is kind of causing further division of people. Because, you know, I was thinking about this the other day. Like, if you were to ask someone now, tell me 10 things about you that describe who you are, I guarantee you probably 9 out of 10 people, nobody's going to say that they're a human being first, or one of the first few things. They're going to say, I'm black, I'm white, I'm a father, I'm a brother, I'm a sister, I'm this, I'm a, you know, my professional life, I'm a liberal, I'm a conservative. Now more so than ever, I think we have so many more labels and things to keep us apart and to divide us. But think about it, you know, like the people you interact with, and I'll put this out there for everybody. Think about if you ask them that question, how many would say I'm a human being first and foremost? You know what I mean? So to me, that kind of shows you the fact that we're all so separated, and we lose sight of that one commonality that we all have. And, you know, some people even debate that we're all, you know, one race. You know, some might say there's a, you know, subspecies and all this type of stuff. But, you know, that to me was interesting. If you really think about that, you know, how many people would really say I'm a human being first and foremost, outside of all that, all those other descriptions that when you're born, you're not born a conservative or a liberal, or, you know, race and ethnicity, excuse me, are, you know, concepts that have been given to us when we, you know, when we first come into this world. So,
man,
something to think about.
Yeah, no, I think that's so deep, and you getting philosophical with it, man, stoic with it, because I'm hearing you, and because you're saying is like to be human is to suffer, man. If
So
you go, okay, go.
no,
go.
even that
Yeah.
is like, I don't agree with that.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure,
That's
sure.
what we've been taught and conditioned to believe. In order to be to have salvation, in order to be that better person, you have to suffer, right? I get that you have to overcome trauma. You have to learn how to come out of that. maybe some would say that's suffering to a certain extent, but I don't look at it. To me, suffering is a negative thing. You know what I'm saying?
And maybe that's why. Maybe suffering is not the right word, right? Because the saying goes that I don't fail, I learn.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And I'm right there with you. And suffering is different for everybody because it's like, what's your tolerance level?
Right.
Some people out here who has gone through some crazy stuff. Like it's
of
you
course.
and I both know.
Yeah.
And then we start playing the comparison game, the flag. Like I suffered more, no, you suffered more. Because I guess suffering is to be human is to experience humanity, which is laughter, joy,
pain.
Crying, pain, and all these things. Everyone experiences it,
Right.
If you're not, you're a robot, and that's the problem. Are we becoming too robotic with it, right?
But I think they have us focus too much on that suffering and not on those other things to help us get out of that suffering. For us to understand that suffering is not our natural state of being.
Right. Correct. Yeah. Well, I think, I think at some point, because again, it's not maybe suffering, because suffering we think like hurt, like real pain, like domination, like I lost.
Right.
I think we're constantly being challenged.
Right. Exactly.
And to get out of our comfort zone.
Right.
That's the only way. But getting out of our comfort zone, for some people, even like we think of like old LA. Like it's a challenge to get to different blocks and neighborhoods because you know what's out there and what can go down. But I think that's where life is a little bit of that challenge, not suffering. I like that you checked me on that because I think that can be too much of us being too hard on ourselves.
Well, you know what I believe, and this is the same thing. Adversity helps to build character.
Yes.
So let's take out the word suffering and use. You know what I'm saying?
Adversity. I like that.
To be human is to experience adversity, but it's also to experience happiness and joy and all those other wonderful emotions. So we just went
super level
all over the place. But that's what it is, man. This is the conversation, I could sit here and talk with my man here for another 2 hours, but we got to keep it short. We got to cut it right now. To my man, Dr. Walter Hidalgo, where can people, follow you, see your podcast and all that?
Yeah. You can Google me now, because that's our profiles, our digital profiles, Walter Hidalgo. But Know Thyself on all social media platforms. Really, you can find everything, including my services. I coach kids at home. If you're looking for home coaching, I also do online coaching as well. A copy of my book, Beyond the Four Walls, The Rising Ministry and Spirituality of Hip Hop. Is hip hop spiritual? Read the book and find out. But www.knowthyself.tv, where you can find all informations, including workshops that I do with teens and young adults, etc.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you coming through, man.
Yes.
As always, tune in for these types of conversations with yours truly. Don't forget to hit the subscription button. I'll catch y'all next time for another episode of The Conversation.
Salute.